Okay, let's go, guys. I really want Rosaria. I don't want any Razor. I will accept Bennet, but I don't accept Razor. Let's go. It is time. I only have 17 wishes. Please, Rosaria. Please, Rosaria. Come on. No! 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 No, Bennet. Okay. Better than Razor, I'm not gonna complain. Okay, I think I can get 3 more wishes. If the next purple only comes at the, like, 10th wish, I think I can get 3 more wishes today. To at least summon a new purple. And that new purple will be Rosaria. Oh, come on, Rosaria. Now it's Rosaria. Okay. Now it's Rosaria. No! 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 No, Kazuha, no! Rosaria, no! I lost my guaranteed! Hello everyone, hope you're well and staying safe. I am Sugar Cake, and in case you're new to the channel, here I like to play and talk about wholesome games. So yesterday, as you probably already seen, I decided to summon on Kazuha's banner because I really wanted Rosaria and I was saving for Yoimiya, but then Kazuha actually showed up a bit unexpected. But it's all good. He's a really fun character to play with. He's really good. I wasn't prepared for him, so I don't really have all the artifacts and weapons and stuff that I would like to have for him. At least I managed to level him up, but I spent the last day trying different things and different builds. So today I want to share with you my suggestions for Kazuha. And just as a reminder, this is all that is. This is just suggestions that is completely based off of my own personal opinion. This doesn't mean this is the only way to do things or this is the right way or whatever. So of course, please don't take it as absolute. This is just what I've been trying out. And yeah, I just hope that's helpful for you in case you got Kazuha and wasn't really prepared either. So first things first, Kazuha is obviously really good for exploring. His passive talent, Cloud Strider, actually decreases the sprinting stamina consumption for all of your party members by 20%. It's not stackable, but it's super useful. With only one character you can get this effect. And of course, he has his elemental skill, which is great for so many different things. So obviously, you know, Inazuma is coming, all those Electroculas are coming. You can simply use his elemental skill as a double jump, or, you know, to reach more difficult places, or you could also hold the elemental skill and make an even higher double jump. You can also get airborne like this and, you know, just fly from the elemental skill when you use it. And it has other uses as well. It's super useful. I'm absolutely, you know, in love with this elemental skill. So for example, if you are falling from a big fall damage, you can just use the E and you're gonna negate that fall damage if you use it right before hitting the ground. So if you have no stamina and you're falling really, you know, really high, you can just use the elemental skill and you're gonna negate the fall damage. Another super fun thing is that you can have kind of like an infinite climbing. So let's say you're climbing and you're running out of stamina, you know, you're getting close to an end. You can actually use the elemental skill mid-air to get to the wall again. So for example, like this, and the stamina actually regenerates a little bit while you are in the double jump. So this is really helpful. It's gonna be great for exploring. You know, Inazuma is coming. We're gonna be able to reach lots of places and climb a lot with Kazuha. This is gonna be great. Another good thing is that while you're doing the double jump, you can do a special type of plunge attack. So if you do a normal plunge attack like this, nothing's gonna happen, it's just a normal plunge attack like any other characters. But if you do a plunge attack while you're using his elemental skill, you're actually gonna have a bit of like a suction effect there that is gonna suck enemies into the middle of your, you know, your elemental skill, which is great for crowd control. It's gonna be really useful to have that mid-combat. And it also, obviously, like any other animal, it's gonna absorb the element if your enemy have had any element applied to them. So that's really good for, you know, proccing those, well, like Swirl and other elemental reactions. It's gonna be really, really useful. Elemental skill is absolutely great. His ultimate, you already know. The animation is amazing, has a very big area, and it's gonna proc, you know, elemental reactions. It's gonna be really useful as well. And it stays for a long time. It's very similar to what Venti's abilities do, so it's really great. The cooldown is pretty short, so you can really spam this elemental burst. It's just amazing, really. And it will get whatever element is on there, but you can do reactions after absorbing that element. Kazuha's abilities are really great. Like I said, the elemental skill is really good for a variety of things, good for exploration. It's also useful for dodging the enemies without consuming stamina. So for example, if someone is attacking you and you have no stamina left, especially in the Spiral Bees when you have like the cryo effect, you can just use the elemental skill to quickly dodge the attacks from the enemies, and this way you won't be spending any stamina to dodge it. Kazuha also has pretty good damage output here on Animal. Just a reminder, Animal doesn't actually make the elemental reaction. So for example, if you put some water on the enemy and then you use the Swirl, you can actually use a Pyro character later to proc a Vaporize reaction, for example. So that's really good, and that's where Kazuha really shines because of the amount of elemental mastery that he has. So his elemental burst is really useful for that. His elemental skill as well is gonna help that happen as well and increase the output of the damage from your current reactions. He has two passives besides the Cloud Strider, which we already talked about, which is if his elemental skill comes into contact with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, it will absorb that element, and his plunging attack, if you do perform one, is gonna deal an additional 200% attack as damage from the absorbed elemental type. So it's really, really useful. And his second passive talent is that every time he triggers a Swirl reaction, he will grant his teammates a 0.04% elemental damage bonus to their corresponding element for every point of elemental mastery that he has for 8 seconds. So that is insane, because every time you ascend Kazuha, you're gonna get a little bit more elemental mastery. And if you use weapons and artifacts that gives him elemental mastery, his elemental mastery can go pretty high. Mine isn't very high because, like I mentioned, I don't have the artifacts and weapons for him because I wasn't farming for him. But you could get this for like 800, 900, maybe even 1,000 elemental mastery if you really focus on that. And this will give an absurd amount of elemental damage bonus to all your party members. That can go up to like, I don't know, if you have 400... If you have about 400 elemental mastery like I have here, you could have like a 16% damage bonus for all of your party members for 8 seconds. This is huge. This is really, really good. And it's gonna increase the damage output of your current party. Because of that, he can fit in pretty much any kind of team. His constellations are really good. People talk about it quite often. My videos are not really focused for whales because I'm pretty sure that whales already built them, the characters that they have. This is more for like free-to players or people who don't invest much on the game because it's, you know, just normal people like you and me. And we have the constellations. You probably won't get much of them, but I know that the 6 constellation is really good, especially if you have Zhao in your team as well. It's gonna grant a animal infusion for 5 seconds, but yeah, his constellations are pretty good. It really increases his damage output as well if you want to use him as a DPS. For team compositions, you know, it depends a lot on what you have and how you want to use Kazuha and which characters you've got, but focusing on a free-to-play example here, you could, you know, because of how Kazuha is, he's very oriented to elemental mastery, he's really only oriented to, you know, proc elemental reactions. So having a team for, you know, the traditional vaporize or melt or even overload is going to be the ideal. So for example, if you want to use Kazuha as a support character, you could very easily have a team made of Zhengling, Xingqiu, Bennet, and then Kazuha there. So Chongyun as your main DPS, Xingqiu as your sub DPS, and to proc that vaporize reaction, Kazuha for the Swirl, the elemental mastery, the, you know, increasing the damage output as a support character, and Bennet as the healer and also the attack increase character, which everyone already uses. You know, both Bennet and Kazuha and Xingqiu can really fit in most teams, but you know, it's just easy. You could very easily swap Chongling for any DPS that you have. Could be Klee, could be Diluc, doesn't matter. You could have, if you don't have Xingqiu, you could have Barbara there as well, it's fine. You could also have a melt team instead. You could swap them for Diona. You could have 2 cryos in a melt team for that good cryo resonance that increases your cryo rate. To get the most out of Kazuha's passive talents and ascension boost, I would recommend getting as much elemental mastery as you can on him. That means that main stats and substats should get as much elemental mastery as you can, because that will give your other party members a lot of elemental damage boost. For a Kazuha, mainly, you know, to provide support, I would say try to get a elemental mastery kind of weapon. So we've got a few options. Of course, there is the 5-star weapon, which is perfect for him, but since this is more focused to free-to-players, we'll mention that we have a 3-star option that is okay, like it's acceptable. If you don't have any other or you don't have any prototype, you could do very well with Dark Iron Sword. The Dark Iron Sword obviously has a very low base attack because it's only 3-star, but it has a lot of elemental mastery in its substat, which is 141, and the stat of it, like the effect of it, is really good as well for Kazuha, because when you cause overload, superconduct, electrocharge, or electro-infused Swirl reaction, attack is increased by 20% for 12 seconds. So it's an okay sword, you know, if you take in consideration it's just 3 stars, and you need that sort of materials to ascend in case you don't have them already. Try to think of what takes the least investment from you right now, right this second, to build up. To get the Dark Iron Sword, you will have to talk to Chen the Sharp near Liwa's teleporter. His second dialogue option will give you the Dark Iron Sword, but keep in mind that's the only way you get this sword from, so you can't really refine it or anything like that. So, and it's still a 3-star sword, so that's only for like the beginning of the game. If you don't have any other options for now, you could do with this one, but I would definitely recommend something else. And of course, the next good option would be Ally Flash. So Ally Flash has a much higher base attack, 620. It's a 4-star weapon, 55 of elemental mastery as a substat. It increases damage dealt by 12%, and you know, it's a pretty good sword. But in my opinion, my personal opinion, of course, the best weapon for Kazuha for free-to-players will be the Iron Sting. So Iron Sting is a craftable one. You can get your prototype, go to the forge and forge as many as you need to refine if you have lots of prototypes, and it's a great sword because it has 165 of elemental mastery in the substat and a pretty okay base attack of 510, and every time you deal elemental damage, it will increase all damage for 6% for 6 seconds, and it can stack twice, and it will occur every 1 second. So it's a pretty good, you know, short cooldown there. It's a really good sword for Kazuha. I think it's like ideal if you don't have any 5-star or anything like that. I would definitely recommend Iron Sting. And for artifacts, I would say a full set of Iridescent Venereer would be ideal. you know, you're gonna increase all your swirl and animal damage. You will decrease the opponent's elemental resistance. You know, it's just ideal. The main stats you're gonna get there is more elemental mastery as much as you can. Some energy recharge if you wanted to you know, give some burst damage and get a lot of animal damage bonus. I think that would be perfect. If you can't find a 4-piece set of Iridescent Veneer, you're not being very lucky with it, you can also use like a good old Noblesse Oblige 2-piece set. You will increase your burst damage, so that's absolutely fine. You're gonna get 20% more damage there on your burst. And yeah, maybe try to get a little bit more energy recharge so you can spam the burst a little bit more. But yeah, that's a pretty good composition. In case you really like Kazuha and you want to use him as a DPS, you know, it's obviously also viable. You can use him in a few different ways. It depends really a lot on what you have in your playstyle. First thing that would come to mind, because he's a sword user, would be a physical damage Kazuha. So I would use, you know, Kazuha as a main DPS and maybe using Prototype or any physical damage swords and possibly some physical damage bonus Goblet instead of Animal. And I would put probably Kaya, I think, with Fischl and then Diona. This way you can proc Superconduct, which increases your final physical damage output. For that you can simply use a Prototype Rancor, classic sword. It has a base attack of 565, a physical damage bonus of 34%, which will help you on the output of your physical damage with your sword. And for artifacts, the easy choice would be 2-piece Pale Flame and 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry to get a good 50% physical damage bonus. And if you're lucky enough and you farmed a lot of the new domain, you can actually get a 4-piece set of the Pale Flame. So every time that your elemental skill hits an opponent, your attack is going to be increased by 9% for 7 seconds. This can stack up to 2 times, be triggered all the time basically, and every time you reach the 2 stacks, the effect of this Pale Flame will be increased in 100%. So you're gonna double that physical damage bonus. So that's really, really good. And you could also easily swap Kaya for Rosaria, for example, or you could swap Fischl for Beidou in case you don't have her, or if you just prefer her. And any, you know, any cryo electro characters you prefer could help here, except for Chongyun. Because Chongyun, as you probably already know, his elemental skill converts all attacks from sword users into cryo damage. Because of that, you could actually use Chongyun to make Kazuha an animal slash cryo DPS, making his sword be cryo damage instead. So if you would like to use Kazuha as kind of like elemental mastery still, but elemental mastery DPS kind of, if you have Chongyun, you really want to use him, or if you have activated Bennet's 6th Constellation by accident, you could definitely convert your Kazuha into a Pyro Animal DPS or a Cryo Animal DPS. So of course, in case you don't know, you shouldn't really, like, it's not really recommended to activate Bennet's last Constellation because it converts all the damage into Pyro, which is really bad in certain situations if you want to proc elemental reactions. But in case you do, that's fine. That could be a good moment to use, you know, Kazuha as a DPS, because you can have a party where you use Kazuha as your main DPS and then Chongyun here with, well, could be possibly another cryo character maybe, just to have a bit of a cryo resonance with crit rate and stuff like that. And then you could have Bennet. So here, whenever you use Chongyun's E or Bennet's Key, you're gonna infuse Kazuha's sword with cryo or pyro. And that can be really useful since you have your elemental skill that is animal and it's gonna swirl that element. So that can also work. I wouldn't recommend it much, but in case you really want to use these characters or in case you activated Bennet's Constellation, that's a viable option for you. To make that work, you're gonna need to build your Kazuha to give a little bit of like elemental DPS. So you could keep the same artifacts and weapons as a support Kazuha, but you know, on the artifacts you could get Wondrous Troop instead of no Blast Oblige, because here you want to get as much elemental mastery as possible to increase the damage output by infusing your sword with cryo, pyro, or whatever. Another option, if you're lazy like me, or maybe you play on mobile and you have a hard time in your current world level, you could have a good old lazy team composition. You can use Kazuha as your main DPS still, with jungling, Fischl, maybe Mona if you have her, and Diona, and you can just proc elemental reactions non-stop and do some big good damage by doing absolutely nothing at all. In case you don't know, the reactions actually, depending on the order that you do them, you can do bigger damage. So usually if you have a melt comp, you can try to get cryo first and then pyro, and if you have a vaporize comp, you can try to get pyro first and then proc the elemental reaction with water. This way you're gonna get most damage output from the reaction. In my case here, I really like to do melt reactions here, so my way to do the rotation here is working like I just use Diona's elemental burst, applies cryo to every enemy, go there with Kazuha, use his elemental skill, pro Goba, Xiangling's Goba there, and maybe Fischl's Oz, depending on how many enemies are there, and they just use Kazuha's burst and I just watch it. I watch everything die and I don't even need to do anything about it. So these are the team compositions that I recommend to you today, in case you're wanting to use Kazuha as a support or a DPS. That's your choice in the end of the day. Again, it depends on the artifacts that you have, on the characters that you have, who you like to play with, and my recommendation is just, you know, have the most fun out of it. If you want to play with the character that you want to play, you can make it work. As long as you understand like how you're gonna make some damage from it, you can use any character you want. I hope these suggestions can help you a little bit in case you just got Kazuha. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope it was helpful somehow. And yeah, in case you're around on Saturday, I'm always streaming different games on Saturday and playing together with viewers. So in case you are around and you want to watch it, please feel free to. I would love to see you here. And yeah, I just would love to see how you're using your Kazuha, so feel free to comment below as well. I would love to see. And yeah, I just hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!
Ryan Little.